So I've got an interview with Konstantin Kisin from Trigonometry and former Deputy Prime Minister John Anderson in Australia. Let's see how much I can get through this before I go insane.
Good to be back with you.
Last time we were talking,
Creepy smile.
the Labor government had just been elected here. You'd had the Conservatives suffering a major loss, a really big one, because they lost not just to the Labor Party, which actually didn't get a lot of votes anyway, given that they were able to form government, but also to Nigel Farage's Reform UK. I'd just be interested in opening up this discussion. How do you think it's now going, 6-7 months in? Didn't look like they had much of a honeymoon, and Britain seems to be not altogether a happy place at the moment.
But when was it last time? I think I think a lot of people want to make this about.
Well, before the financial crash, before austerity, before stagnating wages, also before that, it was the 80s when you had, in the 70s, high wages, before neoliberalism came in, the unions were busted and emasculated. Like, people used to be happy when there was less inequality. Will he talk about that? Let's see.
The Labour Party. I think this is something that's been going on for 2 decades now from both parties.
What is that, though? Is he just going to boil it down to immigration? Like, will he talk about inequality, how people are worse off under neoliberalism than they were before we had a Keynesian model? Like,
I can't sit here and be like, oh my God, the Labour Party are doing exactly what we all knew they would be doing. And by the way, a lot of people think that they're really, really like radical. I don't think on a lot of things they are. In fact, on some things they've done good things. They're about to tighten.
yeah, like grifters do. Like, they call them communists. Why? They're cutting disability benefits. They're not really taxing the wealthy in the way they should. They're doing a few bits like VAT and private schools, but they are continuing the same austerity, ideological austerity, which isn't going to stimulate the economy, which isn't going to make people's lives better. So, yeah, they're not radical at all.
Tighten up the rules on people who come here illegally being allowed to become citizens, right? So they are doing some things as best they can, but the overall situation, I think, is way bigger than either of those two parties, and it's been going on for a long time. And I think that's why you saw the election result that you saw. This idea that you were going to vote in a Labour government and things would change significantly, that was never the case. The economy is stagnating. Yes, of course, the Labour Party.
But why is that, Konstantin? Like, can he actually analyze why that is? Like, and you can't just blame immigration. Like, immigration is not the reason why the economy is stagnating. There's various complex reasons.
It's moved from the left position of X number of years ago when the idea was that you uplift the poor. Now you tear down the rich. Yes, that's changed, and so they're raising taxes on people in a punitive way. For example, this VAT.
What? That's such a false equivalency. No, some of the best times where people were less equal in society was when we taxed the rich heavily. It's never been like, oh, you actually lift the poor up by taxing the wealthy. It's called redistribution of wealth. Like, this is how it works. And, attacking the wealthy. Come off it.
On school fees, that I don't know how closely you followed this, but it's basically a way of punishing middle class parents, not the uber wealthy.
No, it's not. It's paying VAT like you do on goods and just applying that to a luxury good. Like, this is most people, like 93% of people are not able to benefit from private education. They pay taxes towards it. They don't benefit. This is a very small amount of people that often it's a golden ticket to life. Why shouldn't they pay VAT? Even middle class people, if you can afford it, you need to pay VAT. Like, it's absurd. Like, oh, you're like punishing, but it's okay to punish the poor and cut disability, austerity over the last 14 years. No, we need the opposite. And that means taxing the wealthy and rebuilding the country. But does he believe in that? I'm pretty sure he doesn't, because he wants to cut tax. Like, he's a trumpet who wants to cut wealth and cut taxes for the wealthy, cut public spending, because he's against the state.
But middle class parents who are just scraping by to have their kids in private school, and there's
So if you're paying like 20,000, it varies. Like Harrow, Eton, it varies between like 20,000 a term, sometimes higher. You're not scraping by. I'm sorry, you are. You're not just middle class. You are in probably the top percent of earners in the UK, because we're so unequal. So let's not act like these people are like, yeah, they may not have 2 skiing holidays that year, but I'm sorry, they are wealthy by any standard. I'm sorry, I'm not going to feel sorry for them.
putting money aside to making sacrifices to achieve that, because the super rich they don't care about VAT on school fees. It's a trivial amount of money to them. So yes, the Labour.
Yeah, so you have a problem. You got the super rich, who is a trivial amount, and then the rest of us who have to pay for the middle class, and massive inequality, which is causing stagnation. It's causing discontent, polarization. But he doesn't care about that. It's the elephant in the room that he can never talk about, because once you start talking about that, you go, maybe the economic paradigm of the last 40 years has failed. I mean, maybe we need something different. Maybe, no.
The Labour Party's doing stuff like that. But overall, the big picture, the economy is still stagnant, illegal immigration is still very high.
See, he always brings illegal immigration. No people allowed through the 1951 Refugee Convention to come over through regular means. He knows he's lying. I should get that on a hoodie. I'm going to have merchandise one day. He knows he's lying. Let's continue.
On all the other things, I think I saw this brilliant video by Douglas Murray, literally on the train here, in which he talked about the fact that a poll showed that 11% of young people in Britain would fight for their country. Said so in a poll.
What does that mean? Let's see what he analyses that to mean.
That's not the Labour Party didn't cause that, and the Conservative Party didn't cause that. It's a bigger thing that's going on, and both of them
always vague. What does he mean, bigger thing?
Are failing.
But that was the point of your book, really, in a way.
Yeah.
You were saying,
See, vague. He has to vaguely gesture at this. Like 11%. There's various reasons why. We kind of live in a post, like they always say, like, like these war hawks, they want to, they want war. And then when people don't want to go to war, they're like, why don't you want to go to war? Well, because of the Iraq war, Afghanistan, that's why young people don't want to go to war. That really kind of made people resistant to war. Also, what are they getting? Like, war, like, usually there's a social contract where if you fight for your country, you'll be given, like, housing, a good job, a stake for the future. There's a reason why people don't want to fight for the country, because they see the country as what it is. A falling apart, polarized, stagnant economy where politicians only care about the wealthy, grifters like him want to blame everything on immigration, and there's no hope for the future. Why? How is that a mystery? Like, people don't want to fight for their country. What's there to fight for? Like, what is there? Like, even himself, he says the Western decline. Like, are we obligated to fight for our country? Are we? Like, do we live in a dictatorship now? Do we not have freedom of choice not to fight and be killed? Like, he's insane.
saying, hey, come on, you've got so much going for you. Celebrate your freedoms. Don't give up on your society. Believe in it, be engaged. But it's not happening in the West very much yet.
There is an exception.
We'll talk about America in a minute.
Yeah, there is an exception to that.
Yeah, where you've got a great disruptor.
Yeah.
Who will do a lot of disrupting.
Several.
Well, surrounded by other disruptors.
Yes, right. I saw this speech by J.D. Vance that he...
They're not disruptors. They continue the economic paradigm of neoliberalism. They're not disrupting anything. Yeah, culturally, yes, they're racist, they're misogynistic, they're horrible people. But they're not agitators. They're just, we're going to own the libs because they think trans people should have freedom of choice in their life. Like, They're not agitators. They are the status quo. They are the establishment. They want to continue this. People want something different. But it's this fake populism that kind of like, oh, it's the will of the people. People don't care about immigration. They're just told to care about it. They want hope for the future. They want a system that their lives can improve and there's some sort of social mobility and better life for their kids. They know they don't get it under capitalism. But they're being gaslit. Oh, like, oh yeah, illegal immigration. That's the priority. Insane.
He gave to the AI summit. Did you see this, John?
No.
Oh, it's magnificent. And the
awful.
details of the AI is a whole different thing. But it was when I watched that speech, I don't really know much about J.D. Vance, so it was just a first impression almost. I've never met him or anything like that. I just saw a guy who was re-articulating something that you've discussed so many times, but he did it very well, which is that our increasing risk aversion is the central problem, right? The fact that we are afraid of words, the fact that we are afraid of...
What does that mean? We're not afraid of words. Like, it's always vague, like, afraid of words. What words? Like, oh, he's so stupid.
Strong expressions of sentiment, the fact that we don't have...
Such as?
Convictions in public very much, and the fact that we...
What is this weird dog whistly, like, strong convictions about what? Like, anti-immigration? Yeah, people have strong convictions. You have 1 million subscribers. You constantly go on about it. Trans people, Muslims. Like, what are you talking about? The whining, the victimhood already. Like, we're only a few minutes in and he's like, oh, can't say this. What are you doing now?
Don't say, actually, our countries are great. Our society is great.
You can say it, but it doesn't mean it's true. Or like, you're saying it right now, Konstantin. You say that's all you ever talk about. The West is, we're the best. Okay, you're the best. Great. That's very secure. You sound very secure in that. You don't sound insecure or at all. Like, no, we agree. You're the best.
That we don't say tens of thousands of people are risking their lives to...
Yeah, he never says this. No, he's never said it before. This is the first time that Konstantin is saying tens of thousands of people risk their lives to come to Great Britain, which the clues in the title is great. So that means it is. If you say something's great, it is. That's how it works. We're Great Britain. That means we're great. But we're not great because we need to make Britain great again. But we are great, but we're not yet. But we will be in the future.
To get here, and yet the people who are here are saying, oh, this is the worst place in the world. No, that doesn't...
You are saying that. You're constantly denigrating the West. Like, oh, the West is in decline. It's fallen. Society's collapsing because of wokeness and transness and immigrants. What is he talking about? Again, this is an example of the incoherence of fascism. You're witnessing it right here. Inconsistent, incoherent, meaningless.
Doesn't make sense, right? And
I agree.
The fact that we are fearful of all the different things when it comes to physical safety. This is a funny example, but I was watching a guy who I watch play computer games. It's a very sad thing to do. I'm sure you don't spend a lot of time doing it.
Not much, no.
But he has more followers than both you and I on YouTube and other platforms. So he's more successful at least.
I wonder if this is Asmongold he's talking about. Let's see.
Right, but he was talking about the fact that when he was a young man, I think he's about my age, he won some kind of competition, and the winner, the prize that they got was the opportunity to smash up a CRT monitor with a hammer, right? And that was fun, right? And he said they would never let you do that now, and I thought that's so true, right?
What? Like, this is evidence for, like, civilization collapse. Of course they would. Like, that isn't an argument for anything. Like, if I brought out an example like that, like, even in the GCSE essay, you'd be like, well, that's not an argument, my friend. It's so stupid.
Because there's glass flying everywhere, it's unsafe, whatever. So on every single thing, whether it's expression...
Yeah, kids aren't allowed to skateboard anymore or, do anything really. It's like...
or behavior or anything, we've become very safetyist. And he was talking about the fact that, yes, we, of course...
Yeah, too safe. Too safe. We need to go back to when we didn't have health and safety regulations. It was just too safe. Like, yeah, we need to start smashing up CRT screens again. That's the problem that civilization faces. Just we need glass in our eyes.
Should be concerned about AI, but we have to look at this as something that also presents tremendous opportunities. And that's what happens when people become obsessed with risk aversion. They become blind to opportunity. And
I'm sorry, with AI, there is massive risks there. I'm sorry, like, that's the big next kind of technological shift after the internet. And it's going to be huge, and it's going to determine the rest of the 21st century. There's going to be huge risk. There's going to be wars potentially over AI, and really dark stuff potentially. And to act like, oh, we're too risk averse, like, no, real threats come with AI. We need to regulate, we need to predict, and really think about where we're going. And the idea, like, oh, we're too risk averse. AI is where we need to be risk averse.
become blind to possibility. And that's where we are, I think.
Just vagueness, just so vague. He never, like, language should be about specificity. Like, you build an argument, you use specific words, use specific examples. All he's given it is vague gesturing. Like, he's used a weird anecdote and not really said anything. Like, and you have to interpret it and go, actually, what's he really mean? Because often it's kind of vague gesturing of, like, wokeness, and he's already mentioned illegal immigration. Like he has no vision. It's just he doesn't like certain things. It's deeply reactionary, essentially. And I don't think he's aware of what he's doing.
That seems particularly true since you describe it that way of Britain today. It's as though somehow, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to be sounding overly critical. I'm concerned. I want to see Britain thrive because of its history, because of out of that history what it has to contribute to the world, its understanding of how the world works. I think it's still needed at the table of nations, if you like, in a big way.
It's something
But
you
it
Aussies
seems so
really understand,
boring.
John. Sorry to interrupt, I'm very sorry, but I think it's a really worthwhile point because I visited Australia last year, and that's one of the things that I took away from it, meeting people in Australia. The way you guys talk about Britain is the way I wish we talked about Britain.
Elaborate.
Well, you feel that it's the mothership, right? And you have in the way that you have a reverence for your mother, you have a reverence for the mothership, the place from which you came, right? Culturally, ideologically, mentally, in some cases, physically, right? Whereas the people who live here don't have that veneration nearly as much. And I think we should. I think we've spent a...
But we don't have to. Like, that's your opinion, but we're allowed a different opinion. Like, I thought you were a freedom of speech guy. We don't have to venerate our country. We don't have to be a nationalist and be like, oh, we have an allegiance to our country. That's what makes the UK great. We are skeptical of our politicians. We aren't nationalist like a lot of countries that are blindly nationalist. Like, we are quite self-deprecating. We're quite modest. We're quite restrained. He wants to be as like America, like, oh, America's great, like this British exceptionalism. We're not that. And I'm proud of that. Like, I'm sorry. This is the freedom of speech guy?
very long time now being afraid to say something that we should say, which is...
Why should we say it, though? Like, why should we... Like, why? Like, what's there to be proud of? We're one of the most unequal countries. We've got massive poverty, stagnating economy. Like, why? We'll just have a blind allegiance because of our past? Like, often our horrible past? Like, we can't criticize that? Like, if you love your country, you're a true patriot, you should be able to criticize it as much as you like. That's freedom. That's the freedom. You can't criticize China. You can't criticize Putin. So what is he talking about? Like, this is the freedom I have. I can criticize him. I can criticize who I want because of freedom of speech. But we know he doesn't care about freedom of speech, does he? Because He thinks that, oh, you have to agree. No, I don't have to agree with you. We live in a democracy.
The accusation that we are the most intolerant or places that are defined by racism and slavery and all of
Who's ever said that? I've never said that. I've said actually one of the most tolerant countries in the world. We actually are a progressive country. Probably one of the most tolerant in the world. Like, even like, I put us on par potentially with like the Nordic countries like Germany, Finland, Norway, even Germany are progressive countries. I'd say probably a bit more progressive than us. Who is saying that? Again, a straw man. Like, who is saying that? Oh, we're the most... Well, obviously not by any measure. But that doesn't mean we don't have problems. And problems that emanate from figures like you.
this other stuff. It's not just false, it's the exact inversion of the truth.
Oh, God.
It's the exact inversion of the truth. It's the exact opposite.
Just repeat it and then it becomes more true. Like Margaret Thatcher did that.
Of the truth. And I debate these people all the time, right? I say to them, whether it's TV or wherever, and I say to them, look, even behind closed doors, I will say this to people: you're a black woman, or you're a this, or you're a that. Where would you rather live than in Britain or Canada or America or Australia or New Zealand, like 5 countries? I'm sure I've forgotten some.
No one's arguing against that. We're a rich country, like the 6th richest country on the planet. We're progressive. But this isn't because of blind allegiance to nation. It's because of our freedoms, democracy, the ability to disagree with people like Konstantin. Like, no one's arguing against this. Like, he's saying like, oh no, yeah, no one wants to come here. Yeah, no. That's what leftists say. No one wants to come to Great Britain. What is he talking about? Again, he has to create these straw men because otherwise he has nothing, really.
But it's not many countries, and they're all Western countries, right? So if you would rather live somewhere else, name me, is it China, is it Russia, is it Japan? Where are these beautiful places full of tolerance and all of this? We are the best at the very thing that we are being accused of being terrible at.
No, not such a straw man. No, we're saying we've got problems. We've still got a long way to go. There's still problems. That doesn't mean that we don't talk about it. We can talk about it in a democracy. We can talk about history. We can talk about inequalities between genders, races, sexualities. Like, this is society. We talk about these things, and it's okay. It's okay, Konstantin. There's no need to get upset about it.
The same with slavery. Slavery existed in the entire world, and in the West.
It's so defensive about slavery. It's always like, oh well, other people have done slavery, and you're mean to us because we did slavery, and it was more recent, and we're good. We're good. We just benefit. Our whole civilization and economy benefit from slavery, but don't talk about it. Why can't we talk? They're so defensive. Like, why can't we talk about it in an open, free society? Why can't we talk about the legacies of slavery and how it impacts society today? What's he so afraid of? He's afraid because then you have to kind of deal with racism then. You have to talk about it and go, yeah, we are one of the best countries in terms of racial relations. But that doesn't mean we haven't got, improvements, and there's still work to do. And that's a sensible conversation. That's a sensible position. But he's acting so defensive.
Ended it.
Well, this country.
This country specifically, right?
Voluntarily.
They always say that. Oh, yeah, like, that's such a cop-out. Like, well, we started slavery and then we ended it. Great. So you started beating your wife up and then you were the one who stopped doing it. Like, it's not a defense of anything. Like, we did by bad behavior, some of the worst crimes in history, and then we stopped. We decided to stop doing it because we're good. Like, what is he talking about? Like, it's insane. And they didn't just do it off their own backs. There was a whole campaign of abolition in America, the UK, that pushed people towards this. They wouldn't have done it off their own back. He's lying here that they were so great. And they realized, they woke up one day and realized that actually black people are equal. No, they were convinced by people like me who pushed them to be better. And that's what I'm doing with you, Constant. I'm pushing you to be better. But will he listen? No, he won't.
Without bloodshed. Well,
right.
A lot of pain for the slaves, but without the bloodshed of the Civil War.
That doesn't mean that slavery
America had.
is defendable, but what is
I'm glad he said that. I thought that's. See, he's not all bad, is he? He's not against. He's against slavery, which I'm happy about. At least he's not that bad.
That's not what you have to defend. The accusation should be, why were you the first empire to end slavery? If there's an accusation to be made. If there's an inquiry to
No, but that's not the whole story. You have to talk about why did they do it. They didn't do it off their own backs. You have to talk about the whole, like, movement against it and go, actually, who forced them? Who forced the, voting for women? Who forced the civil rights in America? Who forced trans rights? Was it the right? No, they were trying to oppose these things. So don't act like, they're so kind. They're so kind to the slaves. Oh, so
be made. That's the question we should be asking. Why was this country and its ideas a place where this novel realization that slavery is wrong?
It wasn't novel. It wasn't novel. There were plenty of people who didn't own slaves who thought this was disgusting. Like, who thought it was wrong. It had to be post hoc justified through race science and the Bible. So he's acting like, these guys just like, wait a minute, should we not enslave a race just because of their skin color? Should we not do that? What the hell is he talking about? Like, often they're lying, but is he this dumb? I think he may be.
Something that prior to that, basically all human beings treated as kind of like, part of life, right? Like you...
No. This is such a misconception. Like, everybody was just enslaving other people. Yeah, there was slavery throughout history. But to act like people were always for it, and then all of a sudden some white men just decided it wasn't, and now we're great. He likes to simplify very complex historical dynamics.
You keep your dog in a kennel, you keep people you've conquered in war in bondage. That's what everybody thought.
Not true.
So
that's such an imperial way of looking at people. Like, that's all they did. Like, it's so telling of who he is and how he sees people, because he's a populist. All he believes in is power. Like, power. That's it. It's an absolute thing. Like, Great Britain need to be powerful. We need to be strong. We need to be confident. We need to own our past and be like, that's our strength. And it's ironically so weak. He's a weak man.
This country then comes up with the idea that actually that's wrong.
Wrong. We did not come up with the notion that slavery is wrong. People have known that for thousands of years. Like, you think like slaves, like, oh, God, being a slave is really nice. Like, this is really good. I love being a slave. There've been slave revolts, Haitian Revolution was the slavery. Like, what is he talking about? And people eat this stuff up and go, yeah, we're so Great Britain. Great Britain, we ended slavery. We ended slavery. We're the best. Like, no one else would have ended slavery. We're the best. Like, no one else has ever stopped slavery, even though slavery in the UK is still happening. What is he talking about? Insane. Just insane.
And it is then this country and other countries so heavily influenced by it, in the Anglosphere in particular, that are the most accused. It doesn't make any sense. And
yeah, because slavery still happens today, and we benefit from slavery. Like sweatshops in China, in Bangladesh, that make our clothes. Like, he's acting like slavery's been abolished. Yeah, legally, but we still have slaves in the UK, modern slavery. That is a real problem that he would not probably talk about and go, oh no, we've abolished. No, it still happens. By abolishing slavery, it still went on for decades afterwards. Like, it's truly insane that this guy is so stupid to not even acknowledge what he says is complete flim-flam.
And we've got to say this right now, because this is the moment, for the reason that you alluded to, that there is a cultural revolution happening. And you either join it or you know which way the other path goes, right?
Oh, what does that mean? Vague. Like, a cultural revolution. Yeah, there is. A far-right like, the Nazis said Nazism was, or National Socialism, was a revolution against a revolution. And that's what's happening. There's a revolution against wokeism, trans rights, BLM, like CRT. Yeah, there is. But you're on the wrong side of it, my friend. You're on the side of the National Socialists who see these degenerates, wokeism, immigrants, illegal immigrants, as the threat, when it's not the case. It's just not the case.
The path goes to stagnation, defeat, decline, etc.
Well, that's very important. And you and I are both.
We've already hit stagnation, decline. Like, what do you mean? We're already declining as an economy. We've been declining since the 70s. Wages, like, we don't make anything. Like, neoliberalism has financialized the economy where money is just this, ethereal thing. Like, what is he talking about? Like, he lives literally in a different reality. He does.
Both speaking at ARC here in London. That's why we're here. We're saying decline is not inevitable.
Yeah.
But having said it's not inevitable, it's
But
going...
they won't correlate it to the last 40 years of neoliberalism. Like, where's this decline come from? Was it Thatcher and Reagan in the 80s? I wonder where it's come from. Like hypercapitalism, like the market, deregulation of banks. I wonder where it's come from. Mystery.
to be our lot if we're not prepared to be more realistic.
Absolutely, and that's actually, a point that needs to be made as well. But I think it's funny because I'm sure we'll talk about Ukraine. The position that you and I probably don't like on Ukraine is called the realist position, and that may be more of what happens going forward. But I do feel like the realist worldview is making a comeback a little bit. This idea that, it's always a tension because
There's no realist way of looking at things. There's different historical tendencies. The realist is looking after people. Like, the realist is not your position. Like, oh, Western civilization's crumbling. All we have to do is go back to nationalism and be strong and, define ourselves based on nation. And, like, what the hell is he talking about? Like, let's continue.
idealism is important, right? We want people who are idealistic and we want people who are realistic, and together they can pull each other towards a kind of common
Balance.
But he doesn't like that, though. What? Why is he saying that? And he's saying, oh, it's like, no, there is that historical dynamic between, like, people pushing us forward, and then there's a bit of a backlash, and that we're facing that progressive backlash now. Like, that's inevitable, historical. Like,
balance, right? But I feel that the idealistic people have been in charge for the last 20 years at the very least, to an extent that's detrimental to the greater good.
where have we been in charge? It's just not true. Like, financial institutions, who's been in power? Tories. Like, who owns Google, YouTube, these big monopolies like Amazon? They are interested in capital. Yeah, they may virtual signal to, like, trans people, but they're not actually focusing on redistribution of wealth, workers' rights. Like, it's simply not true. Yeah, in Hollywood, yeah, but the owners of Hollywood aren't progressive. Yeah, in universities, but overall, no. Like, maybe liberals, yeah, but not leftists, not idealists. Like, liberals aren't idealists. They are socially progressive, but they believe in neoliberalism, like Keir Starmer. Like, and that's the problem. But he can't address that because once you start talking about economics and the failure of neoliberalism, then you have to go, okay, what's the alternative? And he's not going to have that conversation because he can't.
And so the return of a more realistic approach, on balance, will be great, but it will have certain consequences as well, where people...
It's just so absurd, like the power, like, oh yeah, we've had so much power. Like, no, like financially, it's like the economy over the last 20 years has been fed by austerity, quantitative easing, bailouts for the banks. It hasn't been a leftist redistribution of wealth. Like, the poorest in society over the last 14 years have been the most harmed. 300,000 deaths caused by austerity. How is that leftist? The Tories are not leftist. They've pushed to the right. They've pushed the Overton window to anti-immigration, anti-woke, anti-trans rights. That's what they've done. That's why we're so polarized. Since Trump, you've had this push to the right because, oh, woke has gone too far or something.
People are less willing to fight for certain ideals and are more like pragmatic about things. But pragmatism is also important, and we just haven't had enough of it. We just haven't. No pragmatic person would say, let's take a bloke with a penis and stick him in a woman's bathroom. There's no pragmatism in that.
Well, there is. Because if she identifies as a woman, she's a woman. That's it. It's that simple. If she's a woman, she goes in the store, she has a wee. Like, she's more likely to be harmed if she goes into the man's toilet, if she identifies as a woman. Do you want that? Statistically, does he want that? Maybe he does. I don't know.
I don't know how clever it is. I'm not a theoretician. I haven't studied gender science at university. I'm just saying.
Well, you should. You should study these things. If you can have an opinion, broadly, you should look at like the dynamics of gender and how gender is separate from sex. Sex is biological and it doesn't determine what happens up here. We know this. Science, gender experts know this. You should study this stuff because he doesn't know what he's talking about here. But he'll have an opinion anyway because they always do.
A pragmatic person who had no education whatsoever would also know that that's not a smart thing to do.
Education and wisdom.
No, that's the norm that we've been given. And now people realize, wait a minute, gender, sex are complicated things. Identity, who we are, is complicated. And there's always been trans people, and there always will be. And we need to make acceptance and not stigmatize it. That's it. It's a freedom argument. I always say it's a freedom argument. People have the freedom to do whatever they want as long as they're not harming anybody. That's it. He doesn't believe in that, obviously.
Not necessarily always acquainted.
Exactly. And we've had a lot of rule by very educated people. And I mention him in every interview that we do, but I have to. This is what Thomas Sowell talks about. The blindness of the overeducated. The people who...
Okay, so just the anti-intellectual argument. So we'll finish this fascist scree off with just anti-intellectualism. Don't listen to... Have opinions on gender, but don't engage with the theory. And just, yeah, anti-intellectualism. I can't watch anymore. If you've made it this far, thank you very much. Hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next video.